to our YouTube channel, One Race, Human Race, All Human. Today is Saturday, March 5th, 2022. It makes a difference how you're treated, whether you're in Ukraine or whether you're in Ukraine, New York, or Ukraine, California, or Ukraine, Alabama. It makes a difference depending upon if you have a suntan or not, unfortunately.
The face of Ukrainian refugee crisis was in the news this week as videos and reports surfaced of black people, many of them African students, attempting to flee the Russian invasion of Ukraine and being met with discrimination and refusal at border crossings, deprioritized in favor of white Ukrainians. A reminder that even in the worst of global human crisis, race can and all too often does come up. Joining me now is Charles Blow, New York Times columnist and host of Prime with Charles Blow. Charles, is it fair to say, plain and simple, that this Ukraine refugees crisis should be a reminder that all refugees are black and brown, are not black and brown, that anyone can be a refugee, and they all should be treated equally and fairly? Because we spent a lot of time this week, some of us in the civil rights community, talking to the U.S. State Department and the UN about intervening on these reports.
Absolutely, Reverend, and thank you for having me. What it shows us is that in times of severe stress, when you don't have the opportunity for reflection, when your first thought is your only thought, that racial tribalism comes rushing to the forefront, and that becomes the motivating actor. As you just described, it is, bombs, everyone there is in danger. Bombs and bullets do not have brains. They do not know if you're Ukrainian or if you're African, and they don't care, right? And so everyone there is in the same level of danger, and yet the instinct of some people, it appears from both the videos we've seen and from the reports of the people who said that they were discriminated against, that racial tribalism was the trump card and was the activating motivator for the people who were directing people onto those trains.
And I should say that I've talked with some senior members of the State Department here who are looking into it because this is extremely troubling, the videos and the reports we're getting, and we're going to stay on it. But Charles, do you get the sense that we will see anti-Russian sentiment here in the U.S. that could potentially become violent? On the other side of this, can we see in this country some anti-Russian sentiment?
I'm not exactly sure. One of the heartening things about this crisis, and particularly young Russians, both in Russia, thousands of them have been arrested because they were demonstrating and saying, "Not in my name, you will not commit this sort of atrocity, war crime in my name." And also we've seen the same thing from Russian expats in other countries saying, "This is not what I want to be associated with." I think that is very heartening, actually. I don't think that it is a tit for tat in that way. I do think it will be difficult, however, to try to get some justice for these black people who say that they were mistreated, because Ukraine is a cesspool of corruption, including the judiciary, and there's no way of knowing whether or not, even after this, if it will be Ukraine or if it will be Russia. No way of knowing if the prosecutors would be willing to bring any kind of case in this way. No way of knowing if these Africans would even want to go back into this environment to pursue those sorts of cases. So it's a very difficult situation on all fronts.
Now, we're out of time, but I must ask you, do you think this crisis in Ukraine is in any way bringing Americans closer together or further apart? We saw what's happening with some bipartisan efforts in terms of the Congress and the meeting with Zelensky today. Is there any sense that you and I deal with the divisions in this country all the time in our work? Is there any sense that this might be one issue that there's more coming together of American citizens in terms of dealing with this crisis?
Well, I think what happens is when you show people, any group of people, including Americans, human suffering, the natural humane response to that is to have compassion and empathy. The problem I think that some people are having is that we don't show the same human suffering of other people who are not white in the same way. And so I think people are drawing a distinction and saying, let's just compare these two things or these several things and how we respond differently, how even neighboring countries around Ukraine respond differently to Ukrainian refugees as opposed to refugees who are not white and who are not European, and drawing out that difference. I think, yes, we're united in the sense that human beings who are suffering deserve sympathy. But we're not united because in the sense that all human beings who are suffering deserve the same sympathy.
Are we doing the same for everyone, even in moments of unity? Charles Blow, thank you for being with us tonight. Up next, my final thoughts.